Mr. Speaker, I'm here again tonight to once again remind this House and, of course, the Liberal government about a massive gap in our emergency preparedness framework. The lack of a standing federal plan to prevent, prepare and actively respond to marine debris spills. To begin, I want to recognize some of the environmental champions that have been calling attention to the urgency of this issue. Lily Woodbury from Surfrider Pacific Rim, Carla Rabson, who helped deal with the tsunami fallout, Mr. Speaker, from the Japanese earthquake back at Fukushima, Josh Charlson and Josh Temple, both from Coastal Restoration Society, and organizations like Ocean Legacy and Living Ocean Society. These people and these groups, they've been doing the work on the ground in coastal communities. They've been raising this alarm for years, but the government still hasn't addressed these gaps. And it's time this Liberal government listened and actually took action. Mr. Speaker, in 2016, the Hange in Seattle lost 35 shipping containers just off the coast of Tofino, spreading millions of pieces of damaging styrofoam and plastic across the beaches. And in 2021, even worse, the Zim Kingston lost 109 shipping containers in a spill just south of Ucluelet in the Strait of Juan de Fuca off of Victoria, dumping toxic chemicals, toys, household appliances, and other plastic items off our coast. Those are going to appear and resurface for the next 100 years, Mr. Speaker, and beyond. Last November, near Bella Bella, a freighter carrying a full load that took on water, if not for the quick response of the Heiltsuk Nation, it might have caused a devastating marine spill with reverberating effects on the environment and nearby communities. And each time it wasn't the federal government taking the first response and leading in the cleanup, Mr. Speaker. It was municipalities, volunteers, and again, often First Nations and Indigenous communities. While the work they do is incredible, they can only respond rather than act to prevent. And the worst effects of marine debris spills, straining limited resources in this process. So that's why back in 2022, the Fisheries and Oceans Committee called for the government to step up with regulations against expanded polystyrene foam and packaging, a stronger polluter pay liability model, and a coordinated cleanup plan involving all stakeholders, especially First Nations. That's why also the Transportation Safety Board reported in 2024 that Canada is not properly prepared for marine emergencies, including marine debris spills, and advised that a well-resourced response plan will protect marine ecosystems and save lives. That's exactly why I'm here, Mr. Speaker. It's been over a year since their report came out and 4 years since the committee report. Nothing from this government. Transport Canada committed to act on these recommendations, yet in all that time, there's been no concrete action, no improved liability framework, no standing response plan, pure inaction, plain and simple. But there is a clear path forward here. Canada has a standing oil spill response team at the dock ready to move, and I want to thank them for their deeply valuable work. With new equipment and training and capacity, these crews could actually step in and also respond to marine cargo spills as well, giving much needed support to existing cleanup efforts. A small ecosystem service fee could be applied to each container coming to port that could help fund with critical response capacity while keeping the financial onus on a transnational shipping corporations that are doing business, not everyday Canadians. A polluter pay model like oil spills could apply here, Mr. Speaker. So again, I'll remind this government that the time to act is now. We learned on Monday that cargo volumes at the Port of Vancouver rose to a record high of 170 million tons in 2025. More traffic alongside increasing dangerous navigating conditions due to climate change mean that spills will only become more common and more devastating without a real plan. So let's not ask coastal communities to wait for the next disaster. Please pass my bill to establish a national strategy on shipping container spills and build out on rapid response capacity with an ecosystem service fee, and take proactive steps to protect our coasts.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Transport and Internal Trade.
Mr. Speaker, our government has been clear, including the environment. That is why we've taken steps, including working with key federal stakeholders and private sector to prevent spills of oil and hazardous and noxious substances in Canadian waters. Through the Canadian Shipping Act of 2001 and its regulations, the government strictly regulates air emissions, vessel discharges, as well as ship design and construction based on international standards and that often exceed them. Pollution prevention, Mr. Speaker, is at the heart of Canada's marine regimen. We know that spills, chemical discharges, and marine debris represents real threats to the health and marine ecosystems. Now, this regulatory and legislative framework is reinforced by a robust regimen for spills when they happen, Mr. Speaker. The Canadian Coast Guard leads when spills occur and coordinates the deployment of rapid response teams and specialized equipment. The work with industry, provinces and territories, and most importantly, Indigenous communities, because, Mr. Speaker, of their local and traditional knowledge, are essential in minimizing the impact of spills. They are not left to address the situation alone. This is a cross-government approach where we've sought to incorporate and utilize and learn from Indigenous knowledge in our national response system and subsequent responses. Now, our framework, Mr. Speaker, is based on a simple and central principle: the polluter pays. It's enshrined in the Canada Shipping Act, which contains substantial penalties for polluters and other regulatory and other relevant legislation that places financial responsibility for cleanup and restoration on those responsible for incidents and accidents. Now, Mr. Speaker, the Wrecked and Abandoned or Hazardous Vessels Act is just another example of empowering authorities to address vessels that pose risk to navigation or the environment and making owners responsible for the cost of removal and remediation. The framework, Mr. Speaker, helps to ensure owners remain responsible for their vessels throughout their lifetime and reinforces the principle that the polluter pays. Now, concrete steps have been taken to strengthen marine safety and environmental protection in collaboration with Indigenous people and stakeholders. The Canadian Shipping Act of 2001 has been amended to strengthen marine emergency responses by enhancing Transport Canada's authorities to ensure early action by the responsible party to, number one, prevent and contain marine emergencies, expand the preparedness. 3, respond to a regimen including spills of hazardous and noxious substances, and strengthen the compliance and enforcement regime. Transport Canada, Mr. Speaker, has also updated the regulations to strengthen preparedness in the event of oil spills from a vessel. Now, our government is taking further steps to strengthen marine environmental protection by requiring more rapid access to marine emergency services like firefighting resources and emergency salvage capacity as the recent incident in Bella Bella required, and improving preparedness and response for incidents involving hazardous and noxious substances. These actions and our regimen, Mr. Speaker, recognize that a strong safety system is crucial for protecting our marine ecosystem and coastal communities, and is the foundation for a growing trade and economy in a sustainable fashion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Courtenay-Alberni.
Speaker, ask coastal communities how their regime's playing out. Mr. Speaker, if a spill were to happen today, nothing's changed. If it would be municipalities, conservation groups, or First Nations that would be caught holding the bag. Promises and statements like that don't protect coastal communities. And the Transportation Safety Board said itself, Canada is not properly prepared for marine emergencies, including marine debris spills. Mr. Speaker, the owners of the Zim Kingston, they're only on the hook for 6 years under the current regime that he talked about. Well, 100 shipping containers landing on the bottom of the ocean are going to take a lot longer than 6 years to surface. So what we're calling for the government to actually act, follow up on its own Transportation Board recommendations, and listen to these recommendations and introduce a coordinated response plan that includes coastal communities with an ecosystem service fee so industry actually pays for it and cleans up our coast when there's a spill.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to Minister of Transport and Internal Trade.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate this important debate. I will say that Canada does have a strong marine safety system in place. The system works to prevent marine incidents from happening in the first place, and when an accident does happen, the Canadian authorities are prepared to respond in an effective manner, Mr. Speaker, that mitigates impacts on mariners, marine ecosystems, coastal communities, and indeed our supply chains. Now, the Canadian Coast Guard, the agency tasked when there's an incident response, they are absolutely spot on in terms of working with First Nations and Indigenous communities in the work to mitigate and impact spills when an accident occurs. Now, our marine safety regimen ensures that responsible parties can be identified through the life cycle of a vessel and can be held to account for pollution incidents. But I do appreciate what the member is saying, and in particular, I appreciate the importance of including Indigenous knowledge and First Nations community in all that we do in transport. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.